Okay, because you're right. I should record. Because stuff comes through and I have no idea what's coming through, and I lose it as soon as it's out because it
Yeah.
just comes through for that moment. But there's something in each moment that happens, in each person, and you in particular. You are my muse. You in particular draw out of me something that nobody else
The
can draw out.
musings. The musings from the mosaic. Well, I could see you having this whole series of, you know, unending characterizations in a sense,
Yeah.
where, you know, you're sharing this information, and today you're talking as the trash man, and tomorrow you're talking as, you know, something else. And I think that would be really powerful.
Yeah. In reality, I have, like, once I get over this hurdle of I do not want to be this guru, right? And I do not want to be this teacher, but I just want to be a friend that sits with you and shines light in a different perspective so that you see yourself in a way that you never saw yourself before. That it's you that's seeing it, not me, that it's your voice. Like the things that I realize is I have the ability now to hear people's souls. Their soul speaks to me. And so when people come to me and say, will you tell me what my soul's saying to me? I can hear it very clearly. I know what it's saying. And so I say to them what their soul's saying to me, and they say, I can't believe how spot on that is. And I said, well, why? You just told me. You told me what to say, and I'm a parakeet saying back to you. It's don't praise the parakeet, praise yourself and listen to your own self or soul, right? But that ability I thought was what everybody had. It's not.
No.
And so part of this whole process is when I understand more about myself, when I accept the pain and I sit in that pain of those empty moments, and I allow that pain to speak to me and just love me. And when I love it too, rather than oppose it and resist it, I spend my whole life in resistance. This is not what I should feel. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be, but every thought that I don't want to be is a piece of my mosaic. Creates every thought that I have that says, hey, you're poor, is a connection I make to poverty that can be broken in any moment because I'm not that piece. I've just connected to that piece so often that it makes me believe I am that piece. But that piece can be broken or changed or rearranged. It's not like a jigsaw puzzle where every piece goes exactly in its place. These pieces can be rearranged and realtered. And the way we set up our pieces in our mosaic creates the story we tell and who we are.
Exactly.
And those can be changed in any moment, which is what the exquisite reality, and that's not written in the book, but it is written in it's written in every story of the book.
Yeah. It's, you know, years ago, I kind of, you know, the disco ball with all its little squares. I remember saying to a friend, you know, this is who we are with that disco ball. And it really depends on which one is reflecting the light at any given moment.
100,000%. And that's what I believe. Yeah. And so part of what's happening for me in relation to what you're saying is if I would own up to the fact that this knowledge is coming through me and it's not me and I'm not a teacher, it's just I'm its messenger, which would be okay for me, then I really want to create a course, which is what do the pieces in you look like? Here are a few of my pieces. You know, I'm the trash man. But what are your pieces? And how do you create from those pieces, the mosaic, that each of those pieces have a voice, and each of those voices tells a story, and each of those stories creates the book that is called you. And how do you put that book together? And how you arrange that book, and how you tell those stories, and how you integrate those pieces will be the life that you lead.
Danny, there's a workbook there, The Mosaic of Me.
Yes. Yeah.
That you just give to people, you know, and they complete it as they go through your course.
Yeah.
And then they've got that there all the time, you know, as, you know, it's funny because I was thinking about you earlier and I was thinking.
My condolences.
I was thinking about when we first met and what I was doing in my life at that time and where I was. And I was thinking about, and I remember clearly sitting down to read. I remember where I was when I first read it and got the feeling, no, this isn't it. What is it, and having to take a bit of time to think, because I didn't want to say to you, I didn't want to trash what you were bringing to the table.
Totally.
But it was so strong, and it took a while before, it occurred to me, no, it's a parable. There's something else.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how did I do that? How did I know that? And I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah.
But I think that in your openness with it all,
yeah,
you kind of opened a doorway between me and you.
Yeah. See, and I would say exactly the opposite. I would say in your openness to it all, you created that door, right? But that's the beauty of when pieces are connected. We stop seeing you and me, and we just become this one piece.
Yes.
And in that one piece, we create peace, P-E-A-C-E, not P-I-E-C-E, right? And there was, you had the mastery. Like when you said what you just said, I almost stumbled in my listening, because I just couldn't believe that you didn't know how you did that, because my view of you is that is who you are and what you do. And so it was just so like, that's, if someone were to ask me, who are you? I would define you as what you did with me. And for you to say, well, so what that also says to me then is there's something bigger that neither one of us saw.
Exactly.
And that once we enter it, something happens to us.
Yes.
And
that's why people are going to come to you.
Well, and that's why people are going to come to you. And that's what, and I am so, like, I want you to know, I think about you. I can't say I think about you every day, but I think about you so often. And I think about, I have a debt to pay to you, and I have an obligation and even though you shake your head no, to my death day, I know that I have something to give back to you, and however that comes, and whatever I can do, if it comes, and I believe it will come in money, because there's things that are happening that are amazing right now, that if they, like, everything I just told you about is Daniel Bruce Levin. The Mosaic Swarm is a completely different reality. And I believe there's going to be funding there. I believe, like, I just spoke to somebody yesterday, and they said, someone introduced me to them, and they said, I said, what do you do? They said, well, I've been working for Universal Studios, and my boss won't give me this freedom to do what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go out on my own. And I have projects that I want to fund that seem like they're exactly what you're speaking about. So I have your book. I want to read your book. And I would like to see if this is one of the projects I want to fund. I have 20 of them right now. So I don't have a few, I have a lot of them. But I will go out with a full assortment of things and sell what I can sell to. And so there is a movie in that book.
There is a movie in that book. Absolutely.
And I said to her, what the movie in that book would need, which would make it even more interesting than the book, is it needs an evil character. It needs somebody who prevents him from being, who tries to get in his way and prevents him from being what he is, or tries to attack him. It's like, I don't know if they have the same things.
Okay. You know what you just triggered in me?
What?
Did you ever watch the movie Fight Club?
Yes, a long time ago.
I watched it a long time ago when it first came out, and it never ever occurred to me when I'm watching it that the Brad Pitt, I think I've got it the right way around, that the Brad Pitt character was actually the other guy.
Yeah. Oh,
was the other guy. So here you are. There's the enemy within. So if you can create a character that everybody thinks is a separate character, but it actually is just within.
You were so in sync with me, because what I said to her is the way it shows up in the book right now is his own self-doubt and his own thing.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying about creating a character.
Yeah, because
actually lives that.
If you can do that, and everybody starts off thinking that this is completely, this is the bad guy, then it becomes something like Sixth Sense, where at the end of it, it's such a big impact when they realize this is him.
Yeah.
This is his.
And what a powerful message that is, because that's what all of us do to each. I mean, that's what we do to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We literally create this mythological character that destroys us, and we don't realize we start to lose. We tell ourselves so much that he exists that we don't even believe that he's made up.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to tell you about something that I feel certain will resonate with you. I came across a woman recently. I've met a lot of people, interviewed a lot of people who are working with money, the archetypes of money, sacred archetypes of this, of that, conscious money work. Yeah. And it's all been great, and it's all been moving in the right direction. But there's always been something missing for me. And then a friend of mine who lives in LA, who comes from a very wealthy background, but nonetheless has challenges with money, mostly because her kids are always taking it away from her and she's always willingly giving it. And I've known her for 10 years, and she has a number of ongoing issues in her life that she was never willing to see. And then I started noticing at the beginning of the year that something was changing. And it happened that I'd moved back to England then, but I had to go back to Canada. So in January, I was in LA en route to Canada to stay with my sister. And I was at Karen's, and Karen said to me, I said, "What's changing?" And she said, "Oh, I did this work. This woman did a workshop. It was a private kind of, very small, with some wealthy people in Napa Valley." And she said, and I loved it so much, she said, "I want you to interview her." She said, and she'd gone ahead and arranged for me to sit in on a webinar that Sarah was doing. And I said, kind of like, "Oh yeah, been here before, Right. But I said to her, "Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit behind the computer. I don't want to see her. I just want to feel her and hear her." So she was doing this webinar on karma, which was a kind of ho-hum for me, right, until I did it. And there was something so authentic about her that I thought, I like this woman. She's got something. Send me your book. So I was booked out for months and months ahead. But as it so happened, everything rearranged itself so that she could be on my show a few weeks before she was doing a course with the Shift Network.
Wow.
And as I was reading her book, I started going, yes, yes, yes. She's got the missing piece. She's got the missing piece. This is it. This is it. This is it. And I enjoyed our interview so much, so much. And, one of the things that I said to her in the interview was, there's been a lot of books about money, conscious money, what makes yours different? And she's been interviewed so many times. She used to work for the BBC and be an interviewer herself many years ago. But what I loved was that she took the time to really think about it. There was no pat answers like most of them,
Yes.
And then she said to me, after much deliberation, love.
Wow, love that.
And I said, "You're absolutely right, because I've always had the sense that love and money are the same energy.
Yeah.
And how we receive one is how we receive the other."
Yeah.
And it's certainly been true of me when I have not been in a place to receive love, and I've not been in a place to receive money. Yeah. Well, her work to me is pretty darn profound, very simple, very common sense. And her story is that she was some kind of coach, etc. I mean, she spent 20 years studying energy with Chinese masters, but she was working as a coach in London, and something happened and a business went down, and it shook her. And someone gave her a little booklet that in it had something about talking to money. And she decided that she was going to speak to money. Mm-hmm. And she started speaking to money every day. And after 90 days, she had all this writing, money speaking. And the whole book is written as money talking to you. And it is just so simple. And it is so fundamental and so true. And at the end of it, she thought, well, I guess I need to publish this as a book. But the funny thing was, she only had enough money to print one copy.
Oh my God.
And that's what she did. But slowly, things started changing. And I love the way she's working. I know her well enough now. We talk every week. I know her well enough to know that authentic all the way through.
Yeah.
And I believe that, you know, what I've heard from you today is you just need reminding.
Thank you.
That money is love.
Thank you. Yeah. No, when you said it, it went like a spear into my heart, because part of what I do is I treat money like I do treat love. I give it freely. I love everybody. I don't receive it very freely, love or money. And so I think there's a huge connection in that, because I think there's just truth in it.
Absolutely. If you want, and I know Sarah would allow this because she's already told me, if you would like a PDF copy of her book.
Yes, I would love it.
I can send you the PDF. And I've also got, she gave away, when I did the interview with her, she gave away this set of audios to anyone who wanted to sign up for them. And I will send them to you, because the way she works with people, I mean, she doesn't just work with money, but that's what she's getting most known for. And she works with all kinds of entrepreneurs, especially the wealthy people who want to use their money for good.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you know, it's important to work with people like that. Yes. And I've seen how she works when she does collaborations with people. She was contacted by a Russian woman who is a big influencer on Instagram. And this woman puts out this kind of natural health newsletter. And she'd put out something on her Instagram about Sarah and got a lot of response from it. And they ended up organising a webinar with a Russian translator. And it all just happened very organically.
Yeah.
And Sarah just said to the woman, well, you know, I will give you 50%.
Wow.
You know, if you're bringing in your audience. They had 4,000 people registered.
Wow. Wow.
And she gave that woman, and now she's doing more with her. And this is the way that she operates with people.
Yeah.
And at some point, your swarm is going to be receptive.
Totally. 1,000,000,000%. 1,000,000,000%. And the other thing is, I would like I want to say, I would like to have you. And if she would like, I would like to have her also on my podcast. I have a podcast that's up and growing. It's the Mosaic Podcast. It's about how everything in the world is speaking to us, and how all we need to do is listen to the voices. And so it fits exactly in to what's happening, because our situation with money is that it's trying to say something to us. Yes. And the way we, just like our money is love, and the way we deal with our love. And I can completely resonate with that, because a pothole in one area is a pothole in the other area.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes.
And so it's the same pothole. It's just dimensions it's the mosaic of that pothole. Yeah. Right. And so I would love to have her on, and I would love to have you on also.
She would love it. I would love it. And turning that around, one of the things that's, because I said to Sarah, I know I need some of what you've got, and I can also help you with the people that I know. And so she and I meet every week, and we have these great conversations, and she gives me ideas, and I introduce her to people and give her ideas. And one of the ideas that she gave me about my book club, because she said, you know, where are you monetizing it? And I said, I'm not entirely sure at this stage, but I knew that the ideas would come, and she's shown me exactly how to do that.
Wow.
And two of the things that I'm going to do, I mentioned to you that, you know, when I've got somebody's 10 best list, I'm going to do a Zoom interview.
Yeah.
We'll publish the 10 best list, and then later in the month we do a Zoom interview.
Totally.
And it's really about, so tell me about these books, and tell me what was happening in your life at that time, and how this book moved you along. And I think that will be a really interesting.
Very interesting.
You know, And so she said, you just charge, and people can ask questions. She said, if you make it a live thing, people can ask questions. And she said, you just charge, whether it's like $3, $4, $5, a small amount for people to be able to do that and have the opportunity to speak themselves to the guest contributor. But the other thing that she nailed was, and when people ask those questions, she said, some of your guests, it won't apply to all of them, but some of them would be able to take some of those questions and probably build a small workshop around it.
Yeah.
Or, that they can then present with you, so then you can present a workshop that is, very, very affordable for people, an online event, whether it's a little series or whatever. She's going to do one on money for me, with people based around their questions. So she said, you actually tailor make it according to the questions that were asked. And I thought that is brilliant because there's so much cookie cutter stuff out there.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's what I'm trying to get away from. Yeah. I want to get down to what it is that people want and need, rather than what we are drip feeding them all the time.
100%.
So I think you could then present something about the mosaic that could help people.
I think what this conversation that we're having right now is the start of it. And what we could do is have a conversation like this, which invites people to take a look at the pieces of their life because what happens for me, and I've lived a lot of different lifetimes, is I think once that lifetime ends, it ends, but the residues of that piece are still with me, right? And all the belief systems that I have and all the thoughts that came with it, and even the actual occurrences of it are still, my father's still in my life, even though he's been dead 50 years, right? And so those pieces that are there, those players that we've had, that we're scared of, the beast parts of us that we don't want to look at, the painful parts that we push aside, all have a voice. And the only reason they're causing us pain is because we're not listening to them.
Yeah.
And so when we can put our mosaic together and come out and tell the story of our pieces, one of the big revelations for me that you helped me to see now and then as well is that the reason the book wasn't writing itself as well as reason why it took me so friggin' long is because I was trying to tell the pieces what they were saying instead of listening to what they wanted me to say. Mm. And when I listened to what they wanted me to say, suddenly it started to make sense. And they didn't corrupt the file. They didn't make me lose what I wrote. They didn't sound 1 minute great and the next minute not great. They literally wanted me to tell the story they were telling, so that now I go back and I look at the story, and it isn't the story that changes, it's the space between the words that becomes obvious to me now. That would not have been obvious had I. And so it's a new paradigm even for the way a book is written, because who writes a book that doesn't say what it's really saying? Right? But the whole book is a book that says, if you could see what you don't see, what would you see? It's only fitting that book would then hold back things that if you could see them would change you. So like, to me, it's the first, I don't know of another book that's been written that writes the book of what it doesn't say rather than what it does say.
I think it's the kind of book that people would, when they begin to see, they would come back to it again and again.
Yes.
I know one person, do you know PMH Atwater?
No.
She's an amazing lady. Very quirky, really interesting woman. Done a lot of work with the Indigo kids. Uh-huh. But she's had 3 near-death experiences. And she was told she had to write a book for each one.
Wow.
And she wrote a book called Future Memory.
Huh, love that.
Which I read 20 years ago. And when I read it, I'd just arrived in San Diego then from England. It was the start of my journey in America. And I remember at the end of it feeling like, okay, what's just happened to my brain? There were things that I knew were going on that I couldn't grasp. I had no words for. I knew it was important. I didn't know how or why. It kind of left me a bit speechless. Years later, when I interviewed her, and I said right at the beginning of the interview that when I read that book, I felt like I'd just walked a labyrinth. And she laughed and she said, that's exactly how I was told to write it.
Wow.
So that people felt like that, she said. And I know, she said, I've got readers who read it every year and get something different from it each time. And I think those spaces, if people come back to it again and again, are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and accommodate more.
It's so funny in the work. Like, I love talking to you, first of all, because it's just like love of my soul. It's just, I feel just completely loved and nourished by your sharing with me your beliefs and your thoughts and your feelings, because it just like hugs my soul, every word that you say. So thank you. And one of the things I'm realizing is, in each conversation that I have, I talk about the fact that we silo in these like-minded communities, and those silos are getting big. They used to be that. I was so happy when I first found my like-minded community, because it made me feel like, oh my God, there's a bunch of other weirdos out there just like me that are, I'm not the only crazy person in the world. But now those like-minded communities have gotten bigger and stronger, and the spaces between them have gotten wider and deeper.
Yes.
And we really need to take down the silos. And the silos now, in listening even to what you're saying, the silos are even the words of the story. The words of the story almost have to disappear, because they're almost just all they, I say to people this sometimes, that when I speak to somebody, my words are simply to do an Occupy Mind movement. It's not like Occupy Wall Street anymore. It's just something to occupy the mind of a person that I'm talking to. Because what's really happening is there's a vibration that's coming through when I speak that the mind will oppose and resist if it doesn't have some way to occupy itself in something interesting to think about. But when we do that, it opens up the capacity for us to feel something else through the vibration, if we're transmitting it and being sincere with it. And so the words are really the Occupy Mind aspect of the book, because there's a vibration in it that then, when the mind is occupied, if we're open to it, if we allow it, will literally transform the being of your soul. Which is really beautiful. It's not a language most people speak, and I think, God, like, well, who are you, weirdo? Like, what are you doing? You're not a guru. You're not, you're not the. But this stuff, this has nothing to do with me. Just like the book had nothing to do with me. I mean, I wrote a different book until you came along, right? And then when you came along, the characters came along and said to me to do something else. One of the things I want to just come back to, and I would love to explore this with you if we could. There was so much power in what you did for me. And I want you to know exactly how you did that. Because I want you to be able, that to me is who you are. You are not all the other things. You are that. And however you did that for me, it isn't the mosaic that did it to you. Although the mosaic may have opened up a door for you to walk through, but you were the one that walked through. And I believe that's your magic. Your magic is in seeing what is there. Like, that's my magician. My magician is, on my website, I say I'm a magician. And the magician is I help you see what you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Because when I sat with my rabbi at 3 o'clock in the morning in the foothills outside of Jerusalem and asked him for a blessing, he threw me out of his office. And he said, and I wouldn't leave. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, you don't know how to see. If you want to know how to see, come back tomorrow. But I was leaving on a plane to Turkey to go overland to India tomorrow. And I couldn't come back tomorrow until I walked home and I said, why can't I? and I canceled my trip, and I came back, and in moments he opened up my eyes so I could see. I didn't realize it. I thought I needed to stay with him, and I was sad when 6 weeks later he passed away, but he had already done but I just couldn't see it until now. When I look back, what he implanted in me was this ability to see something I could never see before. And that's really what I do. He lives in me. He's the magician. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk to people like you, or a company, or a business, or a person, he comes. It's not me. He's the magician. He lives through me and will help people see what they can't see. You live through me and help people see what they can't see. And I want you to live through you.
I know what you're saying, and I do have, even as we're speaking, knowing is coming to me.
I see it.
Yeah, because I do believe when I look back at that time, because it is so, there's not many things that are that clear in my mind, but everything about those first days when I was reading your manuscript are so crystal clear to me that I think that was probably the moment, although I couldn't acknowledge it then, that made me realize that I have that ability within me. Friends have said it to me, and you know how people say things and say them, and you don't really get it in the muscle until you hear it for the 20th, 30th, 40th, or someone says it in a different way. I know another friend of mine had said to me, you see the balloons all in the air and you know which string and how to plant them. Yeah. And I used to go, yeah. Kind of, that's a concept to me, maybe. But I am seeing that's what the mosaic did for me, because it did actually give me an experience of just being able to be that, of just being it.
That to me is the most important words that anyone has said about the book, because it's from you. Because I think that it touches me so much, because we haven't talked like this about it. We've talked a little bit. We went through it, right? But now we have some time removed from us, and we're both like a little more open, and we're both sort of just talking about it, and we've been knocked down a little bit. And there is a power that is in the concept, just this image, this belief, this thought of a mosaic of life and what that does. And I would love to help you, work with you, do something in a webinar with you, do whatever we do to allow people to see that quality of you, so that they come to you for that, because that is who you are. And I don't know if that's even what you want to do, but
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Because I'm always, there's a good friend of mine, I'm always saying to him, I always used to say, I don't understand. I love talking to people. I love it when someone says, oh, I've got this idea and can you help me? And then it's that piece where you're unraveling or building or putting the thing together. That piece, the creation piece, I call it, is where my juices flow. And I remember saying to this guy so many times, I know that's something that I'm good at. I know that's something that I do. And I don't see why I have to say, no, you can't have it because you can't afford me.
Yes.
Or you haven't got any money.
Yeah.
We should be allowed to do what we do, like the old philosophers, and the community just takes care of you.
And honestly, you couldn't be more in sync with me, because I believe in that. And that's why I've stopped selling coaching. That's why I've stopped working with people. That's why I've stopped doing it, because my senses, the intoxication of what we do has to be so strong.
Yes.
That people give what they can to have it. And sometimes that'll be a lot of money, and sometimes that'll be nothing.
Yeah.
But they give what they can. What you did for me touches me so deeply. There was no reason. I didn't know you. You weren't a longtime friend of mine. to sit down with me and say, I'm just going to do this and I trust that it'll work itself out. There was no reason in the whole world for that to happen. And it still hasn't come to fruition yet, but it will come to fruition.
And it's not important.
But
probably that's why it will.
Yes.
Because it's not important.
Totally. Yeah. And I believe this piece of the love of us being able to receive the love that the world wants to give us is also holding back that piece of being able to receive the money. So what you just brought to the conversation is so rich to me and so real to me, because I live it. I experience that. I can give and give and give, but receiving is very hard for me. And somehow you entered me and allowed me to receive you in a way that very few people can. And I want you to know how special you are to me and how special you are to you, because you have the ability to get into somebody who doesn't want to receive and help them receive. And and I want you to be on my podcast, and I want to talk to you about that, because I want to have this same conversation on that. And I might even just put this conversation on that podcast. I mean, right? Because this is so, but I want you to be on, and I want to let people know about you. I want people to know about we, and what happens when you and me don't even think we can do these things, but together we do it together. And that is our power.
And this is such a great example too for others, because, the older I get, the more I see, and the more I look at someone who's down here engaged in a power struggle or whatever it is, and all the focus is down here, and you just want to say to them, look up. Yeah. Get beyond that and look up.
Yeah.
And you'll see that that's also unnecessary. And I think that by sharing conversations like this, it gives other people the opportunity to see that they can look up. They can get beyond. There's so much more to life and living.
And in my language, pardon me for being so narcissistic in it, but that's the road worker. The road worker literally needs you to get out of the needs me to get out of the pothole so that he can fix it.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's trying to save me. He needs to do his work. And so in order for him to do his work, he has to extend to me a hand to help me get out of that pothole, to not continue to look down, but to move me to a place where I can see that the road in front of me is just full of new opportunities, full of new things. We're one piece away from everything that's coming to us. But we've been in this pothole. We've been in this place where we just look down and bury ourselves. And all we have to do is call on him to bring us out, because he needs us to come out to do the work he needs to do, which is fixing the pothole so that nobody else is in there.
And that's his fulfillment.
That's his fulfillment. That's his duty. That's his job. And it becomes our pleasure.
Yeah.
Right? But we think we've got to do it alone. We think we got to look up on our own, and we don't want to, and we're scared, and we don't know what. There's somebody literally standing at the pothole we're in, extending us a hand, saying, please let me help you. If we could receive that love, receive that money, receive that, whatever it is, it's just there. So I love that. I mean, those are how the characters for me in that book are starting to become real.
Yes.
All we need to do is call on them. Maybe they're mythological, but I would have told you that I was making up most of those characters, that they were based on my story, but some of them I completely made up. I made up the road worker, but he doesn't believe I made him up. I mean, he's as real as this conversation I'm having with you.
What do they call that? Torpors?
I don't know. I've never heard
of that. Is it a torpor? It's, I think in Tibetan Lama kind of ways of being, you can create what they call a torpor, which is a thought form that takes on life.
I love that.
I think there was a book that was written, I can't remember the name of it, but there have been instances where, you know, in horror stories or whatever, or in real life. In Lobsang Rampar's book, there was an instance where somebody's thought form actually almost took on life and became a bit of a shadowy, ephemeral kind of character. But yes, you know, I mean, they are, in a way, they're torpors, because they're a thought form that has energy.
And I love it because it's exactly the conversation we were having about the book becoming the movie, where it needs an evil character. Because the thought form we give to the voices inside of our head literally becomes a character that only at the end we realize is us.
Yes.
Right? And so everything we're saying here is mosaicked in, is connected into each other, right? By the whole conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love you and miss you.
So are you going to write a screenplay? I can almost see this unfolding there.
I don't know how to write a screenplay. I
think they're easier than writing novels.
Really?
Or even non-fiction, so I understand, because it's literally dialogue.
Yep.
And a tiny piece of information about, you know, where they are. And
I would love for someone to write the screenplay based on the book, and I can help. I can you know, advise on it, but I don't know that I don't know that I see it. I mean, I literally see it.
Yeah.
The other movie that I want to make is I want to get in a van and I want to go around the world, and I want to stop at every village, town, city. And
collect people's stories.
And I want to talk to people that nobody talks to.
That's exactly what I've said I'd love to do a radio show on.
Yeah. And that's what my podcast is. My podcast is to listen to the voice, but you have one too. Like, let's do it together. Let's collect those stories. Let's do it. Let's reference each other in the stories that we tell, because to me, it's not one van. The beauty of this would be if there were thousands of these vans going around, filming people, telling stories, because in the world that we live in, there's so much noise. Even those of us who have a voice, I have a voice. I know what my voice is, but it's so hard to have my voice be heard because there's so much noise. It's exactly why you started the No BS Spiritual Club, right? Because there's so much BS that's being told. It's hard to hear real voices.
Yeah.
And so even for those of us who have a voice, it's hard to get above the noise level of the noise, right?
Yeah.
But there are so many people who have been told their whole life they have no voice and their voice doesn't matter. And what they think is insignificant, and they're not good enough to think that they can think anything. And they've been put down. They are the ordinary people. They are the road workers and the shopkeepers and the street artists and the homeless people and the blind people. They're the ones that society has said, you do not matter. But every voice matters. And when we get the collection of those voices, we're 8 billion people now. Together, we can solve things that a solo voice can't solve, which is the swarm, which is that whole idea of what we're doing with the swarm, of trying to bring every voice together to be heard in an environment that doesn't permit for anger and judgment. There's no place for it. You have ideas around a hexagon, and you have a puck in the middle, and together you all move that puck together. Now there's resistance, and there are people that will stay in their position, but the puck eventually moves to a place where there's a decision. That's the clarity and the conviction of that decision may not be that high, but you start to see where the group wants to go. And in some places, the group goes that way with more conviction. And using it as a tool to get us to start to come together from diversity is really what I'm trying to do with that whole mosaic swarm. Yeah. It's fascinating.
And I love that you're doing that. I really do. And, you know, you reminded me that the BBC have Radio 4. They have this project that's actually been going on a few years now. And they call it the Listening Project.
I love that.
What it is 2 people, mother, daughter, friends, whatever, 2 people go into a studio for 15 minutes in their town, because the BBC have studios in most of the big cities around England, and they just record this little conversation about something that's no more than about 10 minutes long. And it might, it could be about anything mundane.
I love
a
that.
Difference of an opinion, or this is how I see it, this is how you see it. I think that you've got, the Swarm could be a repository.
Yes.
For people's ideas and conversation. Are you familiar with the World Cafe model?
Yes. I'm not familiar with it. I've heard of it, but I'll look.
But you've heard of it,
yes.
And it's the same kind of thing where people get together at an evening, and you might have 5 speakers, and then after each speaker, there's tables with facilitators, and people sit at a table and they just give their thoughts and their ideas and feedback, and the facilitator makes notes, and then they move on to another table and they're with other people and they're having an exchange, and the facilitator makes notes, and all of those notes go back to whoever is for whatever, but they all get collected, and you just get these opinions and ideas. I was so impressed. I took part in one once that was something to do with the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and it was such an interesting experience that I've held on to it in my head for years.
Yes.
Thinking, seminars. You go to a seminar and you say you don't want to be a teacher, right?
Yes.
And I know exactly what you mean, and I'm hearing this more and more. There's the teacher up on the stage sharing what the teacher knows, and the audience may get to talk to each other, but they don't get to talk to the teacher too much, unless there's, a little bit of feedback session. But I had the thought that, by all means, have the teacher doing whatever the teacher does, but then have tables, and everybody sits at those tables, and then the teacher sits at those tables, and there's all these little dialogues that go on that I think could expand the conversation. Now, the Swarm could do that.
We are completely in sync, because I go to things and I hear people teaching who don't know anything or know a little, but there's people in the room that know so much.
Yes.
But the collected knowledge of the people in the room is never called upon.
Yes.
And so even in the website that I'm creating about me, is it says speaker, but what I said is the only thing I speak is the idea of opening up the forum to allow every voice in the room to be heard. And then for us to create an environment where you can speak and be heard, and we as a collective will speak, rather than one speaker speak. The idea of solo mind, teaching, fixing, changing, doing whatever it does is done. I believe that paradigm is over. There is a new mind of mosaic mind, or hive mind, or whatever we want to call it, collective mind. Yes. That is the new paradigm of what happens when we bring the collected knowledge of the room that we're in together, and ask for new ways to look at problems that are existing in each of our lives.
Yes.
How would we solve those? What would we do? There in a room of 100 people, there are 100 different perspectives. Why just listen to one person who thinks they know more than we do? They don't.
Recently, I've had conversations with friends. When I first landed in America, I felt like I'd come home and I'd found a tribe, just as you said.
Yeah.
I had a bit of that here, but I felt America was where I was really going to move into that more spiritual, expansive part of myself. And in those days, when I first started my online magazine, which was called Planet Lightworker, this was 1999.
Wow.
And the internet was still in its infancy.
Yes.
And the whole spiritual arena was so innocent. And it was so embracing. Yeah. And you found your tribe, and it was wonderful. And you had these great conversations, and there was such an innocence about it all. And all of that has dissipated. And we used to have message boards, and we'd have moderators on those message boards, and people could share ideas and do things. We don't have that now.
Yeah.
But I think that something, like that needs to come back.
Totally.
There is an innocence in that.
There is a site that sort of tries to do some of that. It's called Kialo, Kialo. Kalo.com, and you can see they have issues, and then they ask people to comment on their issues. And if you comment on what someone else has said, it deletes your comment because someone else has already said it. So it's a tangible, bite-sized formula of what people
and what
think.
Are they doing with that information?
I don't know. Someone showed it to me early on when I was thinking of Swarm. I signed up for it, but I haven't participated in it very much. But what I'm saying is what you're saying is wanted. There are people that are trying to create that, like what you say to me about the BBC having these 15-minute conversations in studios all around. They already have the setup for it. Like what we need to do, how is it possible that I'm who's trying to get people's opinions have never even heard of that? We have to like somehow figure out how all of us can come together and do this work together and support each other and help each other and do it in a collection. How money people, like the other part of the Swarm is that money people who have money, who are looking for conscious solutions, they don't trust the conscious people because the language we speak and the language they speak is different. And the conscious people don't trust the billionaires because we don't trust what they're going to do. And so what we're doing from the other side of Swarm is finding people that want to come from top down, that know the billionaires, that want to become the grout that holds the conscious people to the billionaires by saying, I know you, you know me. You don't know this person, but I do. Trust me to bring you into a room together in an agendaless agenda to see what happens. And let's just see what happens if we can interpret each other's beliefs and processes in a way that we will create something good.
I don't know what to say. Words are failing me. When I started Planet Lightworker, I'm going back to that because some of these ideas, were coming to me thick and fast, and I didn't know what to do with them. One of the things that I wanted to do at that time, because people loved the magazine and because it was beautifully produced in terms of the art and the imagery, and because I had a magazine background, it was edited well, so it was presented well. People said to me, you should make this a print magazine. And I looked at all the magazines around San Diego, the free ones, the Light Connection and different ones. And I thought, my goodness, if I took this into print, it would blow those out of the water.
Yeah.
Because those were all about, local advertising. And because they really didn't have much in the way of content, they got local advertisers to write a bit about whatever it was they were advertising. So the content wasn't great. The paper was crap because, and so on and so forth. And I had this idea of producing a Planet Lightworker in print in the San Diego area and creating a model. And then franchising that model for other cities. So you've got a central source of really good content, but then each edition has local advertising.
Love it.
And it's a giveaway. Idea. But that was just the beginning of it, because then what you've got, if you had one of those, a bit like Natural Awakenings have done with their model, which was the same model I had before Natural Awakenings. Now what you've got is you've got these like-minded people in a town that are picking up this magazine. So now you have meetups.
Yeah, you have network.
So now you've got a place for people to meet up and meet like-minded others. And it's not like a dating site or whatever, but people are naturally going to find friends and partners and whatever. Now you've got this huge network of like-minded people that you can pull on as a force for change. Yeah. Because that many people, you get them together and they can, whether it comes to petitions or whatever it is they want to put their power behind, they can do because you've got enough of them. And that's what you're talking about with the Swarm, because
100%.
Those people can create community.
Yeah. The only slight difference, and then I've got to go. I love you, but we will continue this because I'm intoxicated.
We will.
And I might post this as an unnatural podcast. Because,
do whatever you want.
But because I just love the conversation. But the only place that's different for me is I want to have it be like and unlike minds. I want the swarm
Yes.
to be a combination
Yes.
of all minds, of all beliefs
Yes.
that come together to figure out how we go. I love you. I miss you. I can't believe that I haven't talked to you in so long. I want to, let's arrange another time really soon.
Let's do that.
And
we should talk often. Yeah.
More often, way more often, because I miss you and I love you, and we're completely connected. And you are the mosaic. You created the mosaic with me. So I want you to be in that. I want you and me to be in that process together.
Wonderful.
I love you.
One thing before you go, yes. I need another version of your photo because of the way it's constructed. Even if I crop it, I cannot get it to the size that I want.
Okay.
Like the others. So do you have a bigger version of that?
I'll find something to get you.
Find something. It's a lovely picture.
Okay.
So whatever others you've got of you like that, send over.
I'll get it to you today.
And I'll send you the money book.
I love you. Thank you so much.
Bye, Danny.
Bye-bye. Big
Talk
love.
to you soon.
Ciao.